Hello, my name is Sam Keen, and this is Explore Game Dev. Today I'm starting probably going to be a series of videos on Godot 4, which is coming soon. We're hoping for it in 2022. It's looking good. And for me, I wanted to talk a little bit about the GDScript 2, which comes with Godot 4, some of the syntax changes there. There's quite a few, so it might probably be a couple of videos. But in this one today, I'm going to talk about a new feature called Annotations, and then explicitly how Annotations affects exports that you perform in Godot at this point. So let's jump in and look what annotations are. We see those in other languages, but now we have them in GDScript, so that's exciting. And then we'll look at exports, how those are performed now with annotations, what that syntax looks like with a few examples. And here on the Godot main page back in August of 2020, we can see the announcement for GDScript, the new features being merged into the branch which will become Godot 4. Many changes came in with this GDScript update, and we'll talk about these in further videos. But today, mentioned below here, we're going to be talking about a new feature, annotations, and then more precisely, the impact that has on the export keyword. Annotations are common in programming languages today, though the feature may go by other names. Regardless, they make code more readable and simplify authoring code by means of autocomplete in the editor. At this point in time, this is a list of keywords which have been replaced by annotations. For the most part, this is a one-to-one replacement, with the caveat of export. In addition to having the export annotation, there is a set of specialized annotations. We'll discuss those shortly. In addition, the multiplayer keywords such as master and puppet have been consolidated down to the single RPC annotation with optional parameters. See the link listed here for discussion on that topic. That's all we'll cover for annotations as a topic on their own. Really, they're just keywords with a namespace of the @ symbol in front of them. Now let's dive into how this affects exports. Okay, so now we're in Godot 4, which has GDScript 2, which has these annotations. This is a build from 2022, January 18th. Just have a simple player node with a script attached. And let me just go ahead and uncomment this old syntax, which is no longer valid. We'll see identifier, unexpected identifier, because export is no longer a keyword. So to transform this simple statement is pretty straightforward. So let's just comment that out to calm Godot down. And now we just use the annotation, and we see in the editor we get autocomplete, which helps to build these statements. So we can just capture that. And now we just do var and hit points. Oops, let's use snake case. And we can see Godot is still upset because it doesn't know what type of variable this is. We need to hint it to, or explicitly state it. So there's two ways to do that. We can set it to a constant. Now it knows, okay, 10, that's an int. I know that's the type of control I'll draw in the inspector. The other way to do that, if we don't have the value to set, is with type hints. And we just do this. Get rid of that little guy. And now the editor's happy with this also because it knows it's going to be a type int. And if we go ahead and look over at the player node, in the inspector, we see it points and we see that expected integer control for values. Okay, that's about it. And one note is that the syntax that used to be this, where we would put the hint type in parens after export, is no longer valid, just as a note there. You'll see that paren syntax come back into play with the specialized export annotations, which we'll cover next. Here in our player script, we're going to add a member that's a little more complicated than the previous. You can see the commented out is the old syntax where we're essentially defining a range for complete task time. This says it would be from 5 to 20. You can step at 0.2, and it's a float. It's saying explicitly that's a float. And so that will draw a control in the inspector that's a slider. To do this in the GDScript 2 syntax, again, it's an annotation, and we use our autocomplete to help us out, and it's a range. Now it has an explicit word to it, so it kind of helps to self-document. The top line, you got to kind of look at it, see what it's doing. Right off the bat, the annotation, we know we're defining a range. It's similar. We can start at 5. We can go to 20. We can step it 0.2. Close that off and give this a name. Same thing. Task time. And here Godot should be happy because we've given it enough information to infer the type. We're going from 5 to 20, but we're saying it's a step is a float so that it knows this, okay, this has to be a float to take on those values. You can be more explicit, and I think it's almost recommended to go ahead and type hint this. So it stays valid, but it's a little more explicit. Then if someone came in and changed the step to an integer, this wouldn't convert to an integer, it would still be a float. And if we look in the inspector, we see what we expect here, this slider. And we can see if we drag it, it's a little hard because we're stepping so quickly, but you can see it's always ending on even, so we're stepping at 0.2. One place where annotations have helped simplify the syntax to a large extent is file paths. And this example here shows the previous syntax, previous to Godot 4. And it is getting a file path from the global file system, and it's looking for ping files and defining that to tool image. Whenever I needed to do this, I always had to look for an example. I couldn't quite remember, what order everything went in. So with annotations, it simplifies the syntax quite a bit. So again, the autocomplete helps. So let's do export. And now there's a specific global directory if we want to look for a directory, or file in this case for us. And you just simply put in the filter. So star.png and var tool image. And that should, yep, we're happy now. So I think that's a lot more readable just by looking at this statement that you're pulling in a file from the global file system. It's also easier to author with that autocomplete. So a great improvement here, I think. Also call out that annotations, regardless of their export or not, are stackable, the syntax. So this statement here could also be done just like this. You see it's still valid here and it's still valid here. It's just a matter of style, I would guess, if you prefer that stacked or inline. Maybe based on the length of the line, you might do one or the other. Okay, I hope you found this helpful, piqued your interest on Godot 4. It's just around the corner. You can go download a test build now and start to play with some of these things, and then see how you'll approach new scripts, and then also how you might port some of the existing projects you have to Godot 4 and GDScript 2. As always, appreciate a like and subscribe on the video. It helps me invest further in these tutorials. Any documentation that we covered, I'll leave links down below, and we will see you next time.